Forget all you know about podcasts. We welcome you to an experience uniquely different. Please join us for our coverage of all entertainment on the fringe of society. The candles are lit, the lights are down low. It is now time to welcome our host as he steps up to the pulpit. The sacrifice has been prepared for the midnight black mass.
Ghastly greetings, groovy ghoulies, and welcome to the return of the Midnight Black Mass. Been on a little bit of a hiatus. There have been some exclusive episodes up over at beyondringside.com that will join the on-demand family over at youtube.com/pottyhumor, as well as on Stitcher and iTunes on our subscriber pages at Potty Humor as well. Hello, this is the devil you know, the maniacal minister of the occult, the mouth of hell himself, the Reverend Dan Wilson here with the return of the Midnight Black Mass, and I'm glad to be back. I had, talked about my grandpa passing away, and after that, it just seemed like a catastrophic wave of unfortunate circumstances hit in terms of setting up guests and interviews. So it's been a while since we've been on, but fear not. I'm back in the saddle again and rocking and rolling, bringing the devil's word to you as I always do here on the program. Tonight, very special guest. Very excited to get into this. Probably one of the most respected figures in the Southern wrestling circuit, as a guy who's been a mentor to many, one of the best pound for pound wrestlers still in the business, just an amazing all around performer and a very bright guy as well. Mr. Bobby Hayes is going to be on the show tonight. He's been known as the Butcher, the Cowboy, Heroin. He's had a whole host of gimmicks and identities over the years, but really looking forward to sitting down and talking to him. That's going to be our featured interview tonight on the program. We've also got few special upcoming guests that I want to talk about. Very excited to do so. We've got Caprice Ice Coleman from Ring of Honor Wrestling. We got him scheduled for next week, so all goes according to plan. That will be next week's interview. Also got the Messiah of the Spinebuster, David Young. Whenever we can get this thing recorded, that's been another issue with the blizzard, and he had some family issues and stuff that he had to take care of. So we've had a bit of a time getting up, but he's very excited about that. And then after that, working on this with our cohort, Fast Eddie Lane from Beyond Ringside, going to try to set up a roundtable type show that actually airs live on Beyond Ringside, and then we add it to the podcast archives later. That is, Colt Cabana has his Wrestling Road Diaries that he's had great success with. Giving an inside look at sort of the humorous side, the fun side, the bad side, the boring side, the life of an independent wrestler. And part of that is a lot of crazy road stories. That's the thing, it's one of the most fun parts of the business is just being on the road with your brothers. And there's a lot of unique and crazy antics that go on. So in this roundtable interview, we're going to kind of do a version of the Southern Road Diaries, specifically focusing on nefarious activities. And we're going to have David Young and all that Adam Jacobs and famed Nashville area manager Paul Adams and Air Paris all going to do a roundtable talking a lot of dirt. That ought to be fun. Check for that coming up here in a few weeks. We've also got tentatively penciled in Wildcat Chris Harris, an old friend of mine. I hadn't talked to in many years. Got back up with him recently. And just trying to set up the date on that as well. Formerly known as Braden Walker in the WWE for a short time, but more well known probably as one half of America's Most Wanted, who was one of the early great tag teams of TNA. One of the real unique things that helped that company stand out. So looking forward to talking to Chris here in a couple of weeks. If you want to add me to your event, I am taking limited bookings in 2015, picking my spots a bit more than usual, but I'm still out there. You can book me at dragonsrejects@gmail.com. I'm available as a manager, a talk show host, broadcast announcer, ring announcer, play-by-play, whatever you need me for in terms of the auxiliary positions. I've done it all in professional wrestling, and I can do a good job for you. So hit me up, dragonsrejects@gmail.com. We'll talk turkey. You can also follow me on Twitter @dragonsrejects and contact me there if you'd like. Upcoming events, where can you see the Rev? Got a few big ones coming up. This Saturday, downtown Chattanooga, Tennessee, for a huge event put on by the Honest Pint. The small part of that is going to be provided by New Reality Wrestling, which I'll be a part of, managing the Strong Style Psycho Tank as part of the Devil's Rejects 10-year anniversary tour against one of his toughest opponents, a man who's actually beaten him twice before. Not a lot of guys can say that. A man named Death Wish Brad Cash. So that's going to be one hell of a fight. They're two bruisers and brawlers, and they're going to scrap this Saturday at the Honest Pint, downtown Chattanooga, St. Patty's Party on the Parkway to benefit the Chattanooga Autism Center. We will be going on at the 5:30 p.m. slot. The event starts at 4 p.m. There's lots of bands from all over the country lined up. We'll be going on before the outdoor headliners, Mute Math. We'll be going on at 5:30. At 5:30 bell time for New Reality Wrestling. The event again starts at 4 p.m. You can follow them on Twitter @The Honest Pint or go on Facebook, facebook.com/New Reality Wrestling. Tickets are $15 in advance and $20 at the door. On March the 21st, the following Saturday, the Empire Wrestling Arena rocks once again at the final stop on the road to Tooth and Nail 2014. The WrestleMania of Empire is here. It's the biggest event of the year. They've had some outstanding cards for Tooth and Nail in past years. Very much looking forward to this. I will be back in the play-by-play seat once again. I'm actually laying over the commentary for the Long Cold Winter DVD right now. And so you will be able to hear me on that soon. Check EmpireWrestling.net for the release date on that. And you can also follow them on Twitter @EmpirePW. Or on Facebook at facebook.com/Empire Wrestling. This Saturday at the Midnight Black Mass Live, Empire Wrestling, I will have Andrew Alexander, the matchmaker of the year for Georgia, the matchmaker of Empire Wrestling, the Empire Wrestling heavyweight champion for a 1.5 year reigning, the Temptation, Sean Tempers, and his challenger at Tooth and Nail 2015, Logan Alvey. We're going to have all three of those on talking about Tooth and Nail 4 in the big title match. We're also going to be talking about the Ace Rockwell incident that happened just last week on the Midnight Black Mass Live at Empire. We had an incident where Tempers and his Cabal stable were guests on the program. Actually, Matt Fortune was supposed to be the guest, and he didn't even show up. He sent Tempers and Steve Dave, and they addressed his concerns and theirs as well. And of course, that ended up bringing out Ace Rockwell, and Tempers and Rockwell got into it. And there was an unfortunate accident. Like I said, on Beyond Ringside the other night, it really is unfortunate when things go off the rails. And that's exactly what happened here. It is the Midnight Black Mass Live. We have a nice set. We have a candelabra. We have lots of spooky ambiance and atmosphere. And Ace Rockwell, unfortunately, in the midst of that brawl, ended up face first into the candelabra. The fire, the hot melted wax went all in his eyes. He was taken to the emergency room. He's physically, he's okay, but the injury is bad. His wife is 8.5 months pregnant. It's just a really rough scene, and a lot of controversy. Tempers is claiming innocence. He says, there was a total accident. He was fighting with Rockwell, but he had no intention. It's just, it happened spur of the moment. I don't know. I was in there. Kind of looked to me like he shoved his face in the candle, but the tape is being reviewed. Empire management is trying to figure out what to do. Do you strip Tempers here? I think you have to. If he's culpable, it's going to be hard to determine, but that's one of the big questions we're going to try to answer coming up on March the 21st, Empire Wrestling for the Midnight Black Mass Live, and a whole host of other talent. You can find out all the card details at facebook.com/Empire Wrestling, EmpireWrestling.net, or on Twitter @EmpirePW. So, time for the spooky news. Spooky. So my family is getting ready to go to Disney World here the next, about 6 weeks, I guess. Very excited about that. Seen some other friends going and taking their Disney trips already. I haven't been in 30 years since I was 3 years old. That's the first time I went. It's the first time my wife's going. First time my kid's going. There's a certain magic about the whole Disney ambience to me, in terms of like Walt Disney was probably one of the top 5 most creative people to ever live. And they take such attention to detail to everything there that it really does transport you into this alternate reality. And often because of all of the various rumors and this kind of dark side about Disney as well, there have been rumors that it's been haunted for years. And actually, this is about Disneyland in California, but the rumors applied to both places. So it's relevant. If you look, there was a very popular viral video this week of an alleged ghost walking right through the main entrance of Disneyland in California. And sure enough, if you watch the video, all you got to just type in Disneyland ghost in Google. That's all you have to do. Sure enough, if you watch the video, it looks like a specter, a full body apparition walking right through the front gate of Disney World and down to the main concourse. I guess he was going back to the Haunted Mansion, but, that it was crazy. And the biggest thing, it's like, it's so easy to fake something like that, especially with CGI and computers nowadays. But it was on multiple security cameras, and you could actually see the disturbance in the video from every angle that they had posted. So that's really what really messed with people. You know, it's easy to CGI or fake something from a short distance with one camera angle, but when you're doing it on each camera angle that was provided, that becomes pretty crazy. So, as we always do here, we say, look at it, make a decision for yourself. But search in the Disneyland ghost if you hadn't and tell me what you think over on Twitter at Dragons Rejects. All right, well, now it's time for the Revs Rant. One of my favorite parts of the shows. Hadn't had a lot to rant about. Boy, but am I back and better than ever. So this week, I'm going to rant about everyone's favorite word in the wrestling business. It's the source of much controversy. The word mark. What is it about that word that drives people crazy, both in and out of the wrestling industry, whether they be a participant or a fan of it? It has kind of evolved over time, but got its origins in the carnival days as a word for a pigeon. A mark would be a target, the object or the victim of a con, someone who you were trying to take money from, many times in an underhanded or nefarious manner. That has evolved over years. The 90s were really the big evolvement, but I have a feeling it probably evolved prior to that in locker rooms to where it can mean many things. It all goes back to the root word, but it also both can now be a positive and a negative. An example of the positives of the word mark would be, I'm a mark for something, meaning you're a fan of it. You love it. You buy into it, so to speak. Maybe if it's sort of said tongue in cheek. You're willingly stating that you're a participant in the con and enjoying it. So, in that context, mark is not at all an insult. Often refer to the paying customers as the marks, just as a holdover from the old days. And a lot of those get offended by that. 99.9% of times that it's used, it's not meant in an offensive capacity. It's more back to the newer evolvement of the word, talking about being a fan of something. Just that the wrestlers can be a mark for another wrestler, or can be a mark for a particular company or type of match, or old timer or whatever. And so the fans in the audience, you promoters may refer to them as marks. And there's still plenty that refer to them as marks in the sense that they're trying to take their money. But since everybody's kind of in on the secret of wrestling at this point, it's kind of a weird dichotomy, as I like to examine here on the Revs Rant. So in that context, it can be a good thing. In the bad context, more it's used to describe the boys than anything else. And I think in a negative context, it would mean that you are a mark in that you take things too seriously. You have a diluted perception of your profitability or drawing power or what have you. You are a mark for yourself. You complain about finishes. You complain about having to put certain people over. I mean, that's... Certainly it happens like that. Sometimes the booker knows best and sometimes the boys know best. In most places, if the booker knows what he's doing, then the booker knows best. But if the boys are smarter than the booker, then typically they know best. That's the wild world of the Wild West that is indie wrestling now. So that's kind of what we deal with in terms of the use of the word mark. So very much like the word gimmick, the word mark has many different meanings and connotations depending on the context in which it is used. And it has very much evolved from the original textbook definition of the word, but has become a very frequently used part of professional wrestling vernacular. So there you have it. You can be a mark. You cannot be a mark. Sometimes it's good to do both. That's all for the Revs Rant here this week on the show. We'll be back right after the break with the Butcher Bobby Hayes. Don't go anywhere.
Whether you're having an autograph session, personal appearance, or live event, we got just the person you need to contact for all of those needs. SBI Bookings is home of some of the best stars in the wrestling industry today. They provide you with the best talent this business has to offer, from Kevin Nash, Larry Zbyszko, Scott Steiner, and many, many more. So who will you contact next time you're planning an event? The men of SBI Bookings. Check them out at sbibookings.com.
Hi, but not too high. This is George Carlin. I'm sitting here. I have on a yellow hat, a pink shirt, dark sunglasses, and an earring in my ear. And I'm going to tell you not to get into heavy drugs. Well, it sounds bizarre, I know, but there are other things to do with your life, other things to help you make it. Heavy drugs make it all worse, and they help you die.
Wrestling fans, Anarchy Wrestling television tapings are the second and fourth Saturdays of every month at 4236 Level Grove Road in Cornelia, Georgia. For more information on Anarchy Wrestling and on the shows, to watch the television product, and a whole lot more, go to anarchy-wrestling.net. That's Anarchy Wrestling, the second and fourth Saturdays of every month in Cornelia, Georgia.
We're back on the Midnight Black Mass, and my guest at this time, one of the toughest men I've ever met, also one of the finest all-around professional wrestlers I've ever met. He does the little things better than anybody. He's a veteran of many years, a true legend, in my opinion, in the Southern wrestling, and he's also one of the most respected men in all of Southern independent wrestling. And if you don't believe me, just ask the boys. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome my dear friend, the Butcher, Bobby Hayes, to the show. How you doing, Bobby?
Brother, I'm doing good. How are you?
I am fantastic, and I'm really glad you decided to join us. You've been a guy I've been wanting to get on here for a long time, sit down and talk a bit. I can remember when I first broke in, you were one of the guys I learned a ton from. You were kind enough to take me on road trips to and fro to many different small southern towns, and it was a great education, and I thank you for that. But I do want to get into starting off the interview, my standard opening question, a little bit different than everybody else. Always wants to ask how you got into the business, and as I say, we'll get to that. But I want to know, what lit your fire before you actually got into the business, the thing that first ignited your passion for professional wrestling? What was it about it that appealed to you?
It all started when I was about 9 years old. We moved to some apartments. And in these apartments was a whole bunch of kids my age, and everybody loved pro wrestling. And they was all real big into the WWL for the Hulk Hogan and the Macho Man, that whole era. And that's really where it all started. I just fell in love with it, and I can't really pinpoint what it was that drew me to it so much, but just everything about it, just from the characters to the action, to the storylines, just everything. I just fell in love.
It's one of the few real-life type comic book things that exist. Like, pro wrestling takes these larger-than-life characters and puts them on the screen, but not in the sense that you're used to watching them, like on Saturday morning cartoons or on crazy movies, but they're actually living and breathing people right there in front of you. I think that probably has a lot to do with it. Who were some of your favorites growing up as far as wrestlers that influenced you?
like I said, it all started with the World Wrestling Federation, and as far as the people that I wanted to be like, and the people that really had me was not from that organization. It was from like NWA and even the independents, guys like Bruiser Brody and Abdul the Butcher and Terry Funk and Eddie Gilbert and Tommy Rich and Jerry Lawler, all the really just more or less the independent stuff, the way I can't even explain it. It was just so much different than the guys working for Vince. It was just amazing. I always liked the guys that did all the brawling and the blood and the scars and the whole. It's pretty obvious to tell by looking at me, but those were the guys that I really wanted to imitate, to be like. And like we was talking about before, from the age of 9, and from that point on until I was 18, if you asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I'd tell you point blank I was going to be a pro wrestler.
And that you did. and you did it well. So moving on in that direction, who did you get trained by, and how was it breaking into business? Was it easy? Was it difficult? What type of experience was it, and what kind of toll did it take on you personally?
It was actually not hard for me to get in, because a guy named Mike Golden trained me, and Mike Golden, huge talent in the business in his time, wrestled in 13 different countries. And in America, he was real big in Portland and World Class and Continental and Georgia and just everywhere. And just a huge opportunity for me to get the chance to be trained by him and to go under his wing and let him be the one to train me. I tell everybody this day that was the best money that I ever invested in my life. I don't think I could have picked a better person to train me.
And so, around what year would that have been that you trained under Mike?
That would have been, I turned 18 in 1991. It was in 1991. And, I grew up from the time I was 13 until 18. I would go to wrestling every Saturday night at Dillard's Music Park in Rome. And it was to the point to where I got to know everybody there, to where my mom got mad at me and she wouldn't take me to wrestling. I would call the people that ran Dillard's, and they would come and get me and take me to and from the show. So that's what I meant by, as far as it being easy, I guess, as far as the opportunity being there for me to get in the business, because I didn't have to go track down, promoters or a school or none of that stuff. It was all, I grew up around it, so it was already there.
Interesting.
Very, very lucky on that part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mike, he was an old school guy. What type of training did he put you through? Was it pretty rigorous?
I had my first match. You could have stuck me in the ring with anybody. And I was green as all get out, don't get me wrong. But there's not a person in the ring, there's not a person in the business that could have blew me up. I was in that good a shape when I had my first match. He trained hard. He was pretty strict and pretty rough as far as his training goes, and it was well worth it. Well worth it. I heard that he mellowed out some over the years a few years after I had gotten trained, and kind of drifted away from him as far as the training part of it. But when he had me, he was definitely in his prime, and he did it right. It was, let's just say that pretty much every training session, I'm pretty sure that I threw up at least once, if not more. And that didn't, and when I did that, that didn't give me the chance to take a break. That just meant it was time to keep on going.
It just meant it was time to buckle down a little bit harder and try not to puke next time.
Hey, he cut me no slack. And I'll always be grateful for that.
Well, the end result speaks for itself. And we know the trainer is very important in how a professional wrestler turns out. But also the guys that you meet up with in your early years, who are the veterans, who are kind enough to show you the ropes and tell you the things that the trainers may have left out, the small things, the etiquette, various things. Who were some of the early mentors that you had in locker rooms and guys that you really looked up to and worked with that helped you out?
Well, the guys from Dillard's, like I said, I started with Mike, and of course, he broke me into business there at Dillard's and these other places close by that he wrestled for. You had guys like the Outlaw Todd Zane and Ted Allen, and there was another guy called Ward Eddie that was just brutal, but him as well. And then you had all the old guys that I'll say old guys, the old time guys, the old school guys. The Armstrongs, all the Armstrongs. Back then we worked with Bullet Bob and Scott and Steve, and then Brian came in later, and always just always helping not only me but all the young guys out. Man, it was just so amazing. But if saying all of that, if I had to pinpoint the one person that, as far as that really helped me along the way, would be David Young, because as you know, we was a tag team for a long time. I think total probably about 6 years. And when he got me as a tag partner, he wasn't very happy about it. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure he tried everything he could to keep it from happening, because he knew that I was green. He didn't know me, and I guess I was just another guy he was going to have to carry on his coattails, because at that time David had been wrestling since he was about, I think, 16. So he had a few years on me already. And he wasn't happy about it at all. But
and you guys
really
were known as the Tennessee Party Boys, is that right?
we
you were known
started
as the Tennessee Party Boys? Yeah?
No, that's not right. It's not right at all. We started out as the Party Boys, and that was courtesy of Larry Santana, which was another big influence. Really helped me a whole lot. And he stuck us together as the Party Boys, and I wasn't even Bobby Hayes then. I was sensational Steve Strong, and that also was courtesy of Larry Santana, and I wasn't happy about that. But it took quite some time later for me to get out from under that name, but I eventually did and became Bobby Hayes. But yeah, from the Party Boys, eventually turned into the Tennessee Bad Boys, which I thought was a much better name.
Okay, that's where I was getting confused. So now, did you start?
And we may have had another name or two on top of those two, but we won't get into all that. I think Tennessee Bad Boys would be the name that we're most known for as a tag team. And, I think we'll
was
stick
that
with that.
Before NGWA or during?
Was that what?
Before North Georgia Wrestling, or was that during?
Party Boys was definitely before. Tennessee Bad Boys, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that came while we was at NGWA, if I'm not mistaken. That's been some time ago. I can't really remember, but I think that was during the North Georgia days.
Gotcha. And as a team, of course, you said you were together for a long time, and it didn't start out so great, but you guys ended up becoming pretty good friends over the years. And
best friend.
Did the chemistry? I imagine it eventually came.
Oh yeah. We got to where we worked really well together. When we first started, I was so green, and I was just trying to copy everything David did, because I didn't know how to. I didn't know how to pop the crowd. I didn't know how to do anything. I was green. I knew how to do all the moves, and I knew in my mind, from being taught psychology from Mike and some other people, that how you do things, this way, and when to do them and why to do them, and how to tell a story in doing them. But again, I was so green that really I was just trying to copy everything David did when we tagged together when we first started. And
I know he was not your only early tag team partner. You also did a tag team called the Infernos. Is that correct?
Yes, with Jason Valentine. One of the funnest gimmicks I ever did. Definitely one of the funnest times I had in the business was with Jason. You know Jason, I think. You met Jason before?
Yes, we worked together down in Rome.
Oh, yeah. So anybody that knows Jason knows what I'm talking about. He was just so much fun to be around. We did a lot of, we used to travel a lot with Air Paris, and the stories, the things we did on the road was just crazy. And, not wild, and, you know, lucky we didn't go to jail stuff. Just crazy, goofy stuff we did to amuse ourselves. But working with Jason was so much fun. He was always the mouthpiece, because, you know, I've all these years in the business, I still can't do a promo, and I'm come to grips with that. And I'm pretty sure when I have my last match and I finally retire, that I'll be able to say that I never had a successful promo. But I'm okay with that. But working with Jason, he had such a brilliant mind toward the business. I mean, if he would have wanted to and would have tried, he could have done so much more. And I think to this day, he could still have a job in Power with Vince or anybody else. He had such a great mind for the business, and as far as that went, I mean, I couldn't touch him and still can't. And he was amazing.
You said you had a lot of fun with the gimmick. Can you give the audience kind of an idea of what the gimmick was about?
It was man, how would you word us? It was a tag team that was to be taken seriously, but with so much comedy and nonsense as part of the characters. It was just amazing. Even during our promos and the stuff that we did a talk show when the Hosea Williams was still living. We did his talk show, and we didn't cut him any slack at all. And Jason just tore them up, and it was just, and we wouldn't come out of character, and we wouldn't take our mask off, and it was just really, really good stuff. Good stuff.
Awesome. Well, we touched on this a moment ago, but continue. I'm sorry.
No. I just thought of a story. We worked together doing the Infernos in Atlanta for Warzone Wrestling. And Dion, the owner, what was Dion? I hate to say this. What was Dion's gimmick? What was his working gimmick?
Was that Ruckus that owned Warzone?
Ruckus. I think Ruckus. Yes. And I apologize for that, Dion, if you ever happen to catch this. But we did a spot with him one time when he was coming into the building, to the arena. And the spot was, right off the bat, we would attack him and jump him from behind and hit him in the back of the head with a steel chair. And then while he's laying on the floor face down, passed out, we'd cut a promo. Well, we kept messing up the promo on purpose just so we could keep hitting him with the chair. And so I don't know how many chair shots, to the back and the back of the head, this guy took, but it was a lot. And it was just a big reel, but we were just having fun with it. And it seemed like the whole time me and Jason was together, we was constantly doing things like that, just silly things. And just great
part
stuff.
Part of the fun, Yeah, part of the fun is just entertaining yourself,
Oh, and that we did, man.
So we talked about this for a minute, but it was really the first place you got your first real TV exposure was in the North Georgia Wrestling Alliance. It was featured in Atlanta, and a lot of big names came out of there. The promoter was Sammy Kent, and I know Joe Pedicino was involved there. Kind of take us through that experience. What was the difference, first learning how to work on TV versus just around small arena shows?
Yeah, it was definitely different. It was a big opportunity for us, and we was really excited about it. And we had to kind of I'm trying to think of the word. Yeah, it was new to us. It's something that we had to get used to and adjust to, as far as the TV and also the different personalities that was working for North Georgia at the time. And we had a lot of the different guys that was there already that was in our ears, and we had some guys telling us to, hey, don't do all, because, me and David, we went in there working against each other. And I think actually that might have been the first time that we actually did stuff against each other instead of as a tag team. And So of course, all this time, me and David's been tagging, so we know each other pretty well. We could do a lot of spots and didn't have to call much of it. We knew each other really well in the ring, and so we had some, without a doubt, I'm sure some of the best matches, if not the best matches I've ever had in my career, was with David, because we knew each other so well. But we had some of the guys that had been, established at North Georgia that was in our ear telling us, hey, don't do all that, do this, do that. And then we had one guy in particular that, against everyone else that had anything trying to change us, was New Jack. And he pulled us off to the side one day, and he was like, hey, I know all these guys are telling y'all to not do this and do that. He said, but your stuff's hot. Keep doing what you're doing. He said, they're hating. More or less, he told us, hey, you don't listen to nobody, do what you're doing. And don't let anybody change it, because what we was doing was working. We was having really good matches, and New Jack was the one that said, hey, do what you do. So that was pretty cool. But as far as Joe Pennicino, I think I've met him a few times, or at least once. I never really dealt with him or worked with him on any level, I don't believe. Sammy Kent was definitely a character, and he wasn't real happy with David and I, because we would work for WCW, and if you've ever seen any of the WCW stuff, we wasn't exactly winning matches. And they was wanting to push us on TV for North Georgia, but then we was trying to make a living and pay some bills. And so Sammy Kent, I don't think Sammy Kent was a big fan, especially Bobby Hayes, because it seems like I don't think he cared very much for me. But and I mean, rightfully so. I mean, he wanted to do business with us and wanted to push us and all this, and I had other things I was wanting to do and was doing, and which conflicted with what he was trying to do with his TV. So I mean, it's nothing personal. I understand all that. But on account of that, it caused conflict, But like I said, that was just business. I mean, you can't. I don't blame him for that. I mean, that was just a conflict in interest. So I understand all that.
You talk about doing the enhancement work with WCW and later WWE, and that's an interesting spot. They don't really use that anymore. I've had some of the great enhancement guys on the show. Pat Rose, I mean, was a hell of a worker and was a great talent in the territories in his own right. And, of course, later had a great career as an enhancement guy. I really think there's a place for those still in today's wrestling, but being a guy that lived it, I'd kind of like to hear your philosophies on that spot, first of all, and then also just kind of what your experience was like going through that.
It was a great spot. I mean, it was very, pretty easy money. The matches didn't last very long, and back then everything was at a much slower pace. One of the best tips that Larry Santana ever gave me and Dave was whenever you take a bump, you roll away from the guy. It takes the guy longer to walk over to get you, therefore eating up more time from the match and creating less time for you to get slaughtered as much, which worked out really well. But it was a lot of fun, and I kind of think it would still be good if they still had something like that. If you have to watch the pay-per-views, or if you have to go to the live shows to see the matches that you want to see, then you're more apt just to have a bigger turnout for or a bigger attendance for the pay-per-views and the shows and stuff. Have more people paying for the pay-per-views, and which I know now everything's on the network and all that stuff. But if you can see the stuff every Monday night, if you can see the matches pretty much, and if you want to see the main angles facing each other in the ring on Monday nights, and it kind of takes away from the big shows, I think.
Oh yeah, I mean they've got 6 hours of first run programming that they've got to fill, so I understand why they do it, but still it's like you're overexposing the audience. If you could just trim that back a hair. I mean, I think Bill Watts Mid-South wrestling was always good at that. They struck a nice balance of you'd have some enhancement matches, you'd have some competitive matches, but you'd never really get the matches you really wanted to see unless you paid for them.
Absolutely. When I was growing up, it was when I was watching wrestling as a kid. That was way before pay-per-view, and they would give you just enough on TV to make to make sure that you wanted to buy a ticket whenever they was coming to an arena near you, because that's the only way you was going to get to see the matches that they was building up on TV that you really wanted to see. If you wanted to see Ricky Morton face Ric Flair one-on-one, you might get a clip from something at the beginning of the program on Saturday night, but in order to see the actual match, you had to go to the Omni in Atlanta or any of the other venues that they ran, and it really, for me as a kid and as a wrestling fan, it really made me want to, beg whoever I had to beg to take me to Atlanta to see the matches, and so I think that was a good thing. And, I really liked it that way back then. Again, I don't know. I kind of wish it was still that way today.
Yeah,
but as we all know, the business has definitely changed. So I guess that's a thing of the past. But
yeah, it would be nice to still have them around. There's a lot of ego, I think, that prevents that nowadays, too, because everybody wants to be in the main event. I mean, and you should want to be in the main event, but you could also be smart enough to realize that there's a spot for everybody, and if you're making a living and you're doing what you love, does it really matter?
Hey, absolutely. Absolutely. But like you said, everybody wants to be in the main event, which is understandable. You want to be the best at what you're doing, and so I don't know. I'm content not being the main event. Maybe there was a time in my career when it really meant something to be the main draw, and but it's really my time's passed now. I've had all the main events I want, and I'm just happy to be part of the show at this stage of my career. So
that's a humble attitude and a good one to have, and I think that speaks to why you're highly respected amongst the boys. You told me once that you did get an offer when you were doing enhancements for WWE to go on the road with him full time, and you ended up opting against that. Did you have any thoughts or anything you wanted to share about what led you to that decision, or if you'd have done anything differently, et cetera?
Looking back on it, I mean, I wished I would have done it. I mean, it's something that I could have done and I should have done, but I didn't. At the time, it was Chief Jay Strongbow that offered me the spot with him, as far as working with them on a regular basis and traveling and doing all of that. But at the same time, I had a pretty young child at the time, and I still had a full-time job, because when I was working at WCW, the whole time I was with them, I still had a 40-hour-a-week job that I did. And a lot of it was just scared. I was scared to totally commit to that, because afraid of what may go wrong, and just afraid to make that leap. And I was, like I said, I was at home. I was trying to start a family, and I'd already started a family. So I was trying to do that, and I guess a lot of it's just scared. Just the opportunity that I had that I never really jumped on like maybe I should have.
It's hard to leave that security if you got it. Not everybody's fortunate enough to have a full-time 40-hour-a-week job. So, to leave that for the great unknown of the world of wrestling, where, a handshake is about all the guarantee you've got, and you could end up flat broken out of everything in a moment's notice. I definitely understand that decision.
Oh, yeah, so it might have been, I'm sure it would have been different if it had been a contract offer or something, but it was just a job offer, more or less, more steady, more work with them. But I didn't know how long that work was going to last, and or where it was going to go from there or anything like that. So I just, I guess really if I had to pick one thing that kept me from it, it would just been scared to give up my job and take that leap, I guess, at that particular time.
Yeah, that makes sense. when I met you, you were working the Indies, and it was like a late '90s, early 2000s, and you kind of had a career resurgence there, and ended up with a lot of opportunity. NCW, you worked in Dalton a lot. That's actually where I met you. Later Wildside, Turnbuckle. There was a lot of different things going on for you at that time. You want to kind of just take us to what the landscape was like, some of the promoters that you worked for, favorite opponents, favorite moments, etc.
Well, yeah. Let me think. That's such a big gap there to cover.
Right. You can stick with the early stuff because I did have a question kind of exclusively focusing on Turnbuckle if you want.
Oh yeah, the before Wildside and at NCW out of the Carolinas and all of that, it was throughout the 90s, past North Georgia and leading up to Wildside and NCW and stuff would be like you said, I met you in Dalton for Doug Watkins. That was a steady show for me that was close by, and had a lot of good times there. But I also, me and Jason Valentine as Infernos, we worked for Ron West a lot. Ron West was such an amazing person, and such an amazing promoter, and just such a great talent. And God bless him. And worked for him a whole lot, and just amazing opportunity there. And actually, back in the day, Bambi would run a good bit of shows, and me and David got to do a lot of, about all of her shows, and had a good time with that. But worked for Jack Lord a lot, and there was a guy from Alabama, him and his wife, and Tim Hood, and we did a lot of stuff with him in Alabama, and just really anywhere we could go, we went. Anywhere we could, any place that'd have us, we went. And I'd always tell guys, hey, don't stay in one place. If you hear of a show, go get booked on it. If they don't want to book you, make them book you. I mean, do what you got to do to get booked. Work different shows. Every time you go somewhere different, you meet somebody different, which is going to lead to other opportunities and just different places. And you just keep moving around, and that's what we did. And I think it was definitely the best thing to do, because through that we met so many people and made so many connections, and it led us to so many different and better things. And, but TCW, I'm sorry, no, we're not doing that yet. NCW out of the Carolinas was really good, and Rick Michaels was there, the Hardy Boys, Shannon Moore, me and David, and there were just so many guys there, and we would go up and do that, and it was TV, and it was, that's where the heroin gimmick was invented, which is not really the best name in the world, but it was a pretty cool gimmick, pretty cool character. Just take away all the other stuff they put in there with it. But had a lot of good times there, and I guess that leads up to Wildside. Huh?
Yes. Yes, it would. And, of course, they were doing TV down there. That was kind of the place to be in the early 2000s, where everybody wanted to get. Money wasn't great, but the exposure was. A lot of guys ended up getting contracts from their time there. You had just a little bit of a taste there before moving on to other things, but what was your thought, or what were your thoughts on the experience?
It was good. It could have been better. I guess it definitely could have been worse. They had me doing the same gimmick as in the Carolinas, but under a different name, a little bit more tame name, which was nice. But like you said, it was a lot of eyes, was on the show, was on the talent there. And at the time, that character just conflicted so much with, Raven and Raven's Flock and all this stuff that had already been done. And I didn't want to do that there. I wanted to be a wrestler there, to where I could show my talents and do more stuff in the ring. And I never got that opportunity there. And that was my biggest downfall, was when working for them, was that Bill Behrens wanted me to be a wrestler, but somebody other than him wanted me to do the whole freak gimmick and act, the crazy and the hardcore and all that stuff, which is fine. I don't mind doing that stuff, but there, I felt like it would have been more beneficial to me if I could have been a wrestler. to some capacity, and that I think the end result might have came out a lot better for me if I could have done that there, but I never had that opportunity.
Yeah, I think so. I know it was Steve Martin because he was the promoter of NCW originally, and he loved the heroin gimmick from way back then, and that was one of his pet projects that he was just insisting on. And Bill, Bill fought only so many battles, so, he had to pick his spots, and I guess that wasn't one that he was willing to just go toe-to-toe with Bill, with Steve over. So that was the end result. But you had a big opportunity that come up out of that, actually, with Dusty Rhodes and Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling. Now, I'll preface that with saying we're down to about 4 minutes left in the recording time, and we're only about halfway through the question. So I do believe we're going to be coming back with Bobby Hayes in a part 2, maybe next week, maybe the week after, depending on what we can get scheduled. But I definitely, we need to have you back because there's so much more to talk about. But here in just this last 5 minutes, I think you'd mentioned it earlier, the Turnbuckle Run is a good way to end the episode today. You left Wildside at the behest of the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, who had another opportunity awaiting for you. Tell them about that.
Yes. When Dusty first started his company, he was doing business with Mike Golden, and Mike Golden brought me and I think a couple other guys to Dusty's first show, which was in Birmingham. And from that, Dusty liked my work. He wanted to use me more. But long story short, since we don't have much time, Dusty offered me a full-time spot with his company. He wanted me to work at his school and help train his guys and do his shows. And I did all that. I quit my job. I was, I gave up my daytime job and went to work for Dusty full-time, which lasted, I believe, about 3 years, which was amazing. And through that, man, we don't have enough time to even get beneath the surface on that because it was just such an amazing experience for me working for Dusty and for Turnbuckle. And through that, not only the people I got to work around and got to become friends with, but the business end of it, because I was one of the coordinators for Dusty in the company. I got to coordinate towns, and plus work at the school, helping the guys out, and then plus doing the shows was just so amazing. So amazing.
Wow. Yeah, I think we're going to have to pick back up on that because I want to hear some of the details of that. And I know we're running a little low on time, but I think that's just right where we'll pick up on part 2. Is talking some of the more fine details of working for Dusty because it's got to be amazing. Just any quick thoughts you want to throw about working for him as a booker before we wrap it up here?
Let me think. It was good. Overall, it was a great experience. Dusty just, he knows so much about the business, and he taught me so much that he put a lot of trust in me, and and that really means a lot. And he was just great. We had our problems, here and there. I don't think we have enough time to get into that, but and looking back on it now, it's probably just as much my fault as it was anybody else's. But I had a great time working. Like I said, about 3 years I worked for him, and we'd sit in his office and talk, and we'd talk while we was on, at shows together, and it was just amazing. Dustin, just he's just knows so much about the business, and you look at all the things he's done and the things he's still doing behind the scenes, and it was just amazing.
Yeah, one of the true legends. Like I say, we'll pick up the interview next week with more about that because I know there's more you want to talk about, and I hate that we're running out of time. But that's all we've got for this week's edition of the program, fans. Ladies and gentlemen, the Butcher Bobby Hayes joining us. You can catch him live at Empire Wrestling, Tooth and Nail on April the 4th. You would definitely want to check that out. Thanks for joining the show, Bob.
Hey, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Hey, very much looking forward to this part 2. I appreciate it, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the Butcher, Bobby Hayes, and we are out of time. I'll be back next week. This is the Reverend. Keep one foot in the gutter and one fist in the gold. I'm out.
It has been established that persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder.
Thank you.